So this is the third generation MT-07.
We never fall back. Yeah. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back.
It's got an acropovic, the best acropovic, with a little loop, like the little loop up here. I am borrowing this bike from MotoNorwegen, and I mean, I'm so happy that I'm able to just borrow his bike. He's on the Grom right now, somewhere. Let's take this beautiful sounding bike for a ride. Alright, so this motorcycle, the MT-07, has been around for quite some time, and this is the third generation. Now, this is one of the few videos that I am making that actually does have proper engine sound in it, thanks to the acropovic racing exhaust. Now, the MT-07 usually comes across as a beginner motorcycle, mostly because it does have torque. It doesn't have loads of it, but it has quite a usable loads of torque. It is a naked bike, so it's quite easy to sit on instead of having a sports bike, which could make it difficult to navigate narrow streets. Now, the seating position on this motorcycle resembles a lot of the naked motorcycles out there. I remember the first time I tested the second generation MT-07, and I just felt like the tank kind of had an uncomfortable spot on my my inner thigh. It had this edge on the tank that was kind of eating up my inner thigh. Now, this tank has been reworked, and it's a lot more comfortable for me than the second generation was. You also sit very low on this motorcycle. I don't remember the exact height that this seat is on, but I'm 185 centimeters tall, and as you can see on my leg, it is quite bent when I touch the ground. Now, one of the things that I instantly, when I got on this motorcycle, noticed is obviously the exhaust, but I every time I get on one of these, the CP2 engine just sounds so fantastic, and I find myself giving it just a little bit of brap like that. It's a small amount of throttle just gives it a little bit of that grunt, and it's so much fun. Now, one of the downsides about the MT-07 is the suspension is usually on the softer side. Now, with this third generation, I don't know if they made any improvements from the second generation, but I already feel that it is just riding normally. It's definitely a very usable suspension. It's not stiff. It's not a sports bike. It's not like my RS660. Now, we are on our way to test out this motorcycle on the, I'd say, the road that I always go to is called Hanekleiva, and we're probably going to go on the highway for a little bit just to see how much wind this naked motorcycle is able to mask out. This is equipped with the Yamaha Sport windscreen. I'm not sure. I do believe you could get a bigger one if you want, but it's not going to do a lot for the wind. Now, something that I probably should have mentioned is that this MT-07 is A2 restricted, which means it only puts out 48 horsepower in its current state. Now, what that means isn't necessarily a lot. What I've heard from friends and people that have or do own the MT-07 is that it's really not any faster if you have a full unrestricted version of the MT-07, but it does lose a little bit of top speed, is what I've heard. Oh my goodness. Now, the clutch on this bike is really freaking light, and I do like the the shifter, the shift lever on this motorcycle. It's very tactile and you know where you have it. First corner we get to test the bike just a little bit. Definitely on the softer side. Alright, so riding on the highway, there's definitely wind. There's definitely more wind towards my helmet and my arms than on my RS660, which was to be expected, to be fair. And I can definitely see this getting tiring after hours upon hours of just riding highway. But I mean, it is definitely doable. If you sit and lean a little bit against the wind, it's more than doable to just cruise on the highway. There's not a lot of vibrations from the pegs. The pegs have been rubberized for extended comfort, and the handlebars are really not vibrating that much. It's definitely a comfortable ride. Now, in addition to being able to just cruise, you do have some power to get on your way if you need to accelerate. For instance, if you're stuck behind a trailer like this one and you need to get by it quickly, right now I'm in 6th gear. It does possess power and torque, this little thing. You could also just drop a gear, maybe 2, and it doesn't really do much more than it would in 6th gear. So just cruising in 6th gear, you can do everything you want, as well as make some noise. The benefits about having a naked bike is that it feels so good getting off the highway, because now there's not a lot of wind. Brah. MotoNorwegen, which is definitely taller than me. I don't know how you use these mirrors. I mean, I have to look down to see behind me, and I don't want to adjust them because I think they're set quite well for him. But right now I am at Hanekleiva. I am going to ride this road for a little bit, but first I will have to eat my packed lunch. Suddenly, quiet. Okay, so I've ridden the MT-07 in the twist days, and as expected, it is definitely on the softer side of things. I mean, we knew that. Everybody tells you the MT-07, the MT-07 is soft. And the rear shock, for my weight, I am approximately 85 kilograms without the gear. And for me, this is quite soft. I didn't push or anything in the twisties. I didn't try to get my knee down or stuff like that, because I have burned myself on riding another bike and crashing it when it wasn't my bike, so I'm not gonna repeat that mistake. But you can definitely ride these bikes like you stole them if you know your way around this suspension. I mean, it is definitely possible. Just look at EB Rides. She has the second generation MT-07. She rides that MT-07 like it's a sports bike. And hopefully you didn't come to this video and expect me to say that this bike is the best bike I've ever tested in twisties, because you've probably seen other videos as well on the MT-07. But what I will say though is that it is a blast to take around the twisties. It's not intimidating at all. the ergonomics of the bike is quite good. I do happen to like them. I would like a little bit of a more aggressive riding position, of course, but you're not gonna get that with a naked bike. Well, most of them at least. Now what I found is that if I sit back on the seat a little bit more, you get that a little bit more aggressive riding position, and you do get a little bit of a wiggle room with your upper body movement. Now, because of the wide handlebars as well, you do have a lot of input space, or you have a lot of input. Your input really matters on these handlebars. You could just flick it down, which makes it really easy to ride. Alright, so let's test this MT-07 out on the infamous monster bike off-road, but actually on-road suspension track that I have made here. Let's see, 70, going 70. That is actually kind of comfortable, not gonna lie. I mean, I know I talk a lot about the suspension being soft, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing. For commuting or longer rides, a soft suspension will be infinitely more comfortable than like a proper race suspension. And I mean, depending on what you're going to use the bike for. If it is for commuting, if you're gonna go on the weekend rip with the boys or the girls. I mean, I'm not saying only boys can rip in the weekend. Or if you're going to a very occasional track day, I mean, everything is possible. And that is what this bike really is about. Like the MT-09, it is the jack of all trades. And this one as well is A2 compatible, which makes it a fantastic first bike. So one thing we haven't talked a lot about is the dash. It is quite simple, but it has everything you need. It has odometer, temperature, engine temperature, air temperature. It has a gear indicator and an RPM gauge, which just really makes it very usable. And I happen to really like it. It is centered, which is nice. MT-09 second generation. It's simple, but it's great. Alright, so if I were to conclude on this bike's usability and is it a great beginner bike, I guess, I'd say yes. If you're not worried about the weight or it feeling a little bit big, then this is the bike. I mean, it's not a big bike, but if you go like a 500cc, like for example the Honda CB 500F, that I'd argue that it feels smaller, physically smaller than the MT-07. I guess we get some filtering action in this video as well. Lovely. Wow, thank you. Everybody's so nice here. Wow. Hello. Oh, that's a nice bike. Nice. That's a GP. Yes. Toyota. Now, would I recommend this MT-07 as a first motorcycle, regardless of A license or A2 license? And the short answer is absolutely yes. So hopefully you enjoy this little video. I know it's not a real road review like the longer videos I do, just because I had 4 hours to shoot with this bike. I set up this test ride yesterday. So thank you again to MotoNorwegen for allowing me to loan your bike. Hopefully you enjoyed the Grom. I definitely enjoyed the MT-07. Woo! So without further ado, Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.